Okay, I just, as the vice chair, I am chairing the meeting tonight in place of Michelle McLeod, who is the official chair, who cannot be here tonight. And I just called the meeting to order, and with that, we can do roll call.
Council, Commission Member McLeod.
She's here.
Yeah, Commission Member Currens. Commission Member Funk.
Present.
Commission Member Wallace.
Here.
Commission Member Lowry.
Here.
Okay, so on Commission Member Currens, he did notify me last night he would not be here today.
Can I make a motion to excuse Commissioner Currens from tonight's meeting, please?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Michelle, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Maybe Michelle could react in Zoom.
Michelle, are you able to react in Zoom and can you hear us?
Well, there's always sign language.
She can,
She can hear us, I'm assuming.
that's my assumption.
So can-
Because Michelle, to acknowledge that you're here, I at least need to see a hands up or a chat in the Zoom.
I'm messaging her really quick.
I sent her a message to let her know.
okay, I assume we'll be proceeding as soon as we hear from Michelle.
Mhm.
She sent me a message and she said she can hear it and please proceed.
Margaret, can you reach out to her and ask her how she's gonna be voting if we need to at least see something from her?
Okay, I'll let her know. She says she's working on getting the visual.
Okay.
Can she simply call in?
Yeah,
as
she
I've
can.
had to do
Yeah.
in the past.
But she has no voice. That's the hard part.
Well, she can grunt at us.
I understand that. I understand that. Okay.
Okay, proceed.
So next up on the agenda, we have the approval of the planning commission minutes from March 2nd, 2022. We have the regular minutes and we have the workshop minutes.
Excuse me, I'd like you to know that I can hear you now. and
Okay,
see
good.
you. My apologies.
Okay.
No problem. Hope you feel well.
So if I can entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a correction to the minutes I'd like to entertain. On the workshop meeting minutes, page 5 of 12, item number Y, it says 5 dates, and I believe it should say 5 days.
Is there any other amendments?
I'm fine.
I'm with the amendment, with that amendment, I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended for both the workshop and the regular meeting.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
I,
Thank you.
and with that, I assume we move into the public hearing. There was some discussion about whether we could hold the initial hearing on the short plat. Can we move forward with that? Okay. Tonight, we're going to have 3 public hearings on 3 different topics. The first one is on a short plat with the variance. And somebody,
Excuse me.
okay, so everything's good. Okay, anyhow, we're going to initiate the first public hearing, which is, pardon my pronunciation, I think it's Island, or is it Eland? Eland, okay, and it's regarding a short plat with variance. And with that, I'd like to have,
The verbiage for that. I didn't get that one.
The script. Do you have a script in front of you, Gigi?
yes, I do. Okay, so,
Is it?
pardon, yes, the public hearing, well, okay,
Sure.
this one.
This one.
Oh, you have different scripts for different meetings, gee
Yes.
whiz. Okay. All righty, okay,
Are you opening up for public comments or anything? Or you usually do that before you go into this, don't you?
Not normally for planning commission. They're,
Oh, I'm used to.
okay.
all right. Okay, with that, we're gonna open the public hearing for the short plat, the Eland short plat, is now for the public hearing, portion of our meeting. We'll open the record. Public hearing is for the purpose of consideration of the proposed Eland short plat and variance. We will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard when you are addressed, or when you address the commission. Begin by stating your name and address, and please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone. Before we begin tonight, I need to remind the audience and the commission that Washington state law requires the public meeting and hearings like the one being held this evening not only be fair, but also appear to be fair. Washington state law prohibits members of the Planning Commission from communicating with members of the public concerning the subject of a public hearing outside of the public hearing meeting. In addition, Washington state law prohibits the Planning Commission members from participating in a hearing or a decision in which the member may have a direct interest or may be either benefited or harmed by the city's decision. An objection to any Planning Commission members hearing this item needs to be aired at the time or it will be waived. So let us take a minute to consider as to the matters that are before us in this hearing tonight, whether we had any ex parte communications, whether we had any ownership interest in the properties, whether we have any business dealings with the proponents or opponents of the matters, or whether we have business associates or immediate family who may either benefit or be harmed by a decision in these matters. Are there any commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding an item on the agenda? If not, let the record show that there were no declarations. I have.
If I make a declaration like we talked about, when's the right time to do that? A little bit further in the script, perhaps?
Yeah, I don't know that this would necessarily, because you don't have a declaration to make regarding
Okay.
any ex parte communication, so no, not at this time.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
I do have a question. I'm looking at the Zoom participants, myself and Margaret Dukes. There's somebody named GS. Can that person identify themselves? So is that, do we just have some phantom visitor here, or, I mean, who is that person?
I would assume it's a member of the public that either wants to observe or participate in the meeting. And I do not think there's an obligation for them to state who they are unless they comment on the proceedings.
Okay, I was unsure of the procedure on that, but okay, so if they comment, then maybe they can say who they are. But that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like or who would object to any council member hearing any of the items on the agenda? If not, let the record show there is no objections. No objections being heard, we'll move on. First, we will review the staff report. I am going to ask Millian Van Devender to present a report and recommendations.
Thank you. Emily's gonna get a little PowerPoint ready for me. Just speaking to the microphone. So members of the public, if you want to swivel around, if you need to see the images, you can, you don't have to. So as Jeannie stated, this is the Illen short plat and variance. It is an open record public hearing. I'm Millian Van Devender. I work for AHBL and I'm contracted with Benton City as a planner, community planner. Slide, please. So Jeannie went through the procedure, and so I'll just go through real quick. What you're doing tonight is you are creating an evidentiary record. And that means you're going to build a body of evidence, or you're going to hear a body of evidence, and then you'll make your decision based on that. And your decision is actually a recommendation to council, and you'll be recommending whether to approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions. And so the order of operations, staff, that's me, I'll give a presentation, and then planning commission can ask questions of staff. And then the applicant, if the applicant is present and wants to make a statement, they are invited to do so at that time. And then the planning commission can ask them questions. And then it will be an opportunity for public comments relevant to the matter. And then any questions that are directed to staff or the applicant have to go through the chair, Ms. Wallace, Chairman Wallace first. And then if there's any rebuttal response or clarifying statements by staff and the applicant, that can happen after the public comment portion. And then once all of that is through, then the evidentiary portion of the hearing will be closed and the hearing body will deliberate. That's when you get to talk about it and make your decision. Next slide, please. So your responsibility tonight, I've distilled it into 3 parts. Typically, the planning commission doesn't hear about short plats. You don't make a decision or a recommendation on a short plat. It's an administrative decision. That's something that staff works on, and we route it through the different reviewers, the city engineer and public works and irrigation and whoever needs to see it. In this case, there is also an application for a variance. And because of that, your code says that that part of it needs to come to you, to the planning commission first before it goes to council. And because of that, we've lumped it all into one piece because you can't hear one, it's chicken and the egg. You can't hear one without the other. So the 3 things that you're going to focus on are the preliminary short plat, the variance, and then yard setbacks. And I'll get into that in a moment, but those are your 3 sort of goals, topics tonight. And I already told you that once you hear it and discuss and make your decision, then you make a recommendation to city council, approval, conditional approval, or disapproval. So the review criteria, the things that I want you to keep in your mind tonight for as far as the variance is concerned, there are 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself to make your choice of recommendation based on the relevant facts. And number 1, are there special circumstances or conditions affecting the property that are not common to all other property in the area? So think about that as we're going through. 2 is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights enjoyed by other properties in the same vicinity, and that extraordinary hardship would result from strict compliance with these regulations because of the special circumstances or conditions affecting the property. So is this, so you think about, is this, number 1, is this property in a special situation? And number 2, is the special situation causing an issue where they won't get to enjoy their full property rights? And number 3, will granting the variance be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other property in the vicinity of the property involved? Slide, please. So now we'll get into the guts of it. The project location, it's located, what is that? East of Horn Road, west of 13th Street, north of Irene. And it's on this piece of property that I've outlined in blue. That's sort of an odd shaped piece of property. There's an existing duplex that I've labeled there as 1205 13th Street. That's Mr. Illen's duplex. And then Carolyn and Harold Mason own the piece that's outlined in blue, but they are working with Paul Illen for this short plat. So their property is the one outlined in blue. And then they also own the piece to the west, the lower piece that's adjacent to Horn Road, that's between Horn and this property, the one that doesn't have any buildings on it, structures on it right now. And on their property is an existing structure, and that has the address 1204 Horn Road, and that's an existing commercial structure. Next slide, please. So just a little tiny bit of background. The comprehensive plan land use designation for this property is commercial and residential. It's split. So again, I've outlined it in blue, and on the left, the outline extends over Mr. Illen's property, but you can see that it's red to the west, and then it's beige to the east. So that's commercial on one half of the property, on the west portion of the property, and then it's residential on the other portion of the property. And then the zoning follows that and matches it. And that was in your, I noted in the staff report that this went through CPA 2020, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2020, which was passed last year, to change the zoning to R3. So that's in place. So on the right, where it shows the zoning, the red is commercial. So a portion of the property is commercial, and then a portion of the property is R3 high. And the short plat is going to go down, or is proposed to go down that line between the commercial and the residential to create 2 lots out of this one odd shaped piece that the Masons own. Next slide, please. So the proposed short plat, the whole thing is there on the right. I've just clipped a little image of it so you can see the whole thing. And then I've zoomed in on what is exactly going on. So that commercial structure there is on lot 1. So if you look at the bigger image on the left, lot 1 has the existing commercial structure on it. And then you can see Mr. Illen's existing duplex fronts along 13th Street. And then this is where the variance comes in, because proposed lot 2 will be essentially, we can just call it landlocked. It won't have any street frontage. And in the Benton City Municipal Code, there is a regulation or a rule that you have to have for properties like this. You have to have a minimum of 45 feet of street frontage for every lot. So this one's not going to have that. The Mr. Illen's existing lot, it doesn't matter because he's not changing his lot, but he has the frontage, he has extra frontage. And then the remainder of the Mason's piece would have the frontage as well. So if you can advance the slide, please. So then if it's landlocked, how do we get to it? So the proposal is for 2 10-foot wide access easements. There's one already in place and recorded that's 10 feet wide. So the proposal is to add another 10 feet to provide essentially a 20-foot wide driveway from 13th to get back to this lot. And he is proposing to build, I guess I'm just back up for just a second. The Masons own the parcel. Mr. Illen is proposing, or is planning to purchase the proposed lot 2 from the Masons once this short plat goes through, if it goes through. And then once he does that, he's tentatively planning to build a duplex on lot 2, on the bigger piece of it. So to get back to the access would be 20 feet wide. It would be from 13th Street and it would go all the way back to this proposed lot. If you wouldn't mind advancing, please. So then this is just a quick image of the proposed layout or a preliminary layout. And just so we're clear, we're not deciding on what's going to be built there. We're not making any judgment on what's going to be built there. I'm only providing this to give you an idea of how it could be laid out and how the access could work. But any kind of building plans would be taken care of under a separate permit. They would have to get construction permits for that. And they would have to meet all of the zoning regulations for that, building code, of course, all of that. So just to give you an idea, the existing duplex that faces on 13th is there. And so to the left of it or to the south of it is where this access easement. And there's nothing built in the area of the two access easements right now. Slide, please. So then remember I said there are 3 items. So we've talked about the proposal for the short plat and the 2 lots. We've talked about the need for the variance. And this 3rd item is the yard setbacks. So in the code, your yards are established by where your property has street frontage. So if you have just a plain old box rectangular lot that has 45 feet of street frontage at the top, then that's going to be where your front yard is measured off of. And your rear is opposite to that. And then your sides are the sides. Straightforward. Well, not every lot is straightforward. And in this case, it wouldn't be straightforward. So staff has looked at the issue and considered different configurations. And we are proposing that the Planning Commission, and it's ultimately your decision because there is a provision in the code that says Planning Commission, when yards are not clear cut, when it's not clear what it should be, the Planning Commission can decide what the yard should be. So staff is recommending that the lines in green, so essentially the north property lines in green, that those be the front, and the setback from the front would be 25 feet. And then opposite or most close to opposite of that would be the pink line, the diagonal line at the south there. That would be the rear property line. And in the R3 zone, the setback for that is 10 feet. The east lines would be an interior side lot line for side yard purposes. And the setbacks from that would be 5 feet. And then the west line is also a side lot line, but it's adjacent to commercial. And when you have that situation, when you have residential and commercial next to each other, you have to provide a bigger setback. So the setback from the west line from the commercial would have to be 10 feet. One of the reasons that we propose this particular layout is because if you think about a traditional rectangular standard lot, your front is adjacent to the right of way, to the road, to the access, right? And your access, your driveway comes through your front yard. So this was sort of the thinking with this was to put the front, the small piece of the north property line, to put that adjacent to the easement. So that would essentially orient the house that way. So if someone coming from 13th Street, coming back to the house, they would see the front of the house coming back in there. And then it also allows space from the existing structures that are all around. There are residential structures to the east and the south of this. And then to the north is the park that, Legion Park? Yes, correct. Legion Park, sorry, the name escaped me for a second. Slide, please. The city received 1 public comment letter, and that letter generally addressed a concern for parking at the existing duplex, concern for pedestrian safety, and for potential increased traffic. So as you know, when we do these public hearings and we make these decisions, we have to come up with findings. The findings of fact are what you base your decision on. So and there are only 3 of them, so I'll read through them all. So number 1, suggested finding number 1, there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property that are not common to all other property in the area. This should sound familiar. This is number 1 of the questions that I told you to keep in your head. So some sort of basis for this decision is that the parcel is a unique shape and it's in a location to which legal access is not available to the undeveloped area. due to existing development and structures all around it. And this proposal would be limited to one lot without frontage that has special circumstances. So it's making, and that's a reason to make this necessary. It's not 12 lots, it's just one lot. You would be granting this special situation. Suggested finding number 2. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights enjoyed by other properties in the same vicinity. An extraordinary hardship would result from strict compliance with the regulations because of the special circumstances or conditions affecting the property. So we're stating that it's impractical to extend the public roadway due to the geometric features of the site, existing uses, and location of the property. Given those items and the size of the development, it would be impractical to extend or build a publicly dedicated street to get back to this parcel, basically. And the proposal is an efficient use of land and serves as infill development on property near schools, parks, and bike lanes, which is where you want to put development close to those amenities. Number 3, please, or slide, please. The granting of a variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other property in the vicinity of the property involved. That's suggested finding number 3. And the basis for that is that access to the site will be achieved via 2 access easements extending from 13th Street to the site over the adjacent parcel to the east, and provided the parcel number there for you. And B, a recommended condition of approval is that the building shall have complete fire department access roads meeting the Benton City Municipal Code and the International Fire Department Access Road Code to ensure safety and public welfare. We did circulate the short plat with the variance, the proposal to the fire department and to Spink Engineering, the consultant engineer for the city, to the public works, and city staff has seen it. And the fire department and Alan Rainey with Spink provided several comments, and we worked those in as conditions of approval. And there are at least three conditions of approval that have to do with fire safety and access. So the fire department has stipulations about if the house is going to be, it has to do with the length of the hose coming off the fire truck. So if they can only get their fire truck so far, the house can only be so far from that. Like the house, it's in the staff report that you read. I think it was 300 feet.
Yes.
I believe that the house can't be any farther than 300 feet from where the hose would extend. So we've taken that into consideration and put that into the conditions. If you give me another slide. So there are 10 recommended conditions, and those conditions cover, like I said, fire safety and fire department access, irrigation and utility easements. We're going to make sure that even though they don't have adjacency to the road, that they can still receive irrigation and utilities. One of the conditions is regarding the required setback designations, which you'll decide on. Another condition is that there's no parking allowed in the access easements, addressing, and recreation areas. And the recreation area condition is directly from the code for the R3 zone. You have to have a minimum amount of yard for each tenant, or for each unit rather. The addressing condition, we wanted to ensure that someone driving by, trying to navigate, trying to find the house, whether it's emergency vehicles or the pizza delivery person or whatever it is, that they would be able to identify the house from the road from 13th and to address it off of 13th, and to provide some kind of signage at the road that says, the unit's back here or whatever. So with that, I think we can advance. Yeah. So we're recommending, staff recommends that the Planning Commission receive additional comment and testimony like you're doing tonight, if there's any, and then adopt a motion setting forth the suggested findings and conditions, and forward a recommendation of conditional approval to the City Council for consideration, and then for them to take final action. And then if you need additional findings or conditions or revisions, staff can help you with that. And then the next slide is a suggested motion that we can come back to should you need it. And with that, I'll conclude. And the next step would be whether you have any questions for me.
It's not a question, but I think we need a point of clarification, because Typically, it is the owner who applies for these variances or other issues. There has been, the city has received documentation that authorizes the applicant to speak or represent the owner in this effort. So wanted to make sure that was captured.
Yes,
in the
very good
record.
point. Yes, I didn't mean to leave that out.
That's okay. Anybody else have any discussion?
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything with the package that I got. As far as the fire suppression and access by emergency vehicles and so forth, is that spelled out here someplace exactly what's going to be done?
Yes, there are conditions in the staff report. And
Where is that? Because I don't think I saw that.
give me just a second to scroll through. So if you look at page number 5 of the staff report, there is a section called agency comments. And there were some comments made. It says joint comments from city engineer Alan Rainey, Spink Engineering, and Benton County Fire Department. So those were the comments that they made. Those were emailed directly to me and included in the staff report. And then we turned that into conditions, and the conditions start on page 8. So condition number 2, the building shall be fire sprinklered throughout, meeting all the codes if it's 3 stories or greater. Condition number 3, the building shall have complete fire department access roads, which means that there'll have to be some sort of surfacing to the access easement to ensure that fire department vehicles can get back there. And then condition number 4, a fire hydrant is required if the distance of a hose on the ground from the nearest fire hydrant to the most distant portion of the building is over 300 feet.
Okay, I didn't see this. I apologize. I just missed it here when going through it. The other question I had regarding that, so we're looking at, as far as the egress to the property, those 2 parcels they're 10 feet apiece, is that right? It's those 2 that were together that Ilion is going to buy. Did I get that right?
So there are 2 10-foot access easements across Mr. Illen's property that he currently owns to get back to the new proposed lot 2. That's correct. And they are abutting. So it is essentially one 20-foot wide access easement.
Okay, good. That's very good. Okay, that covers my questions. Thank you.
Any others?
I covered mine.
So I have a question. You had mentioned that Ilion will buy it if he gets approved. So if he doesn't get approved, then he's not gonna buy it?
I don't know the answer to that, but he is working with the current owners with the intent to buy the proposed lot 2.
Okay. Something new that a proposed buyer would put in the short plot instead of the actual owner.
Well, and like Jeannie, what Commissioner Wallace stated, they did provide a signed document
Okay.
that they gave him permission
Okay.
to apply on their behalf.
Any other discussion?
Can I ask a point of clarification related to condition 4? If a fire hydrant is required, because the distance is over 300 feet, that's condition 4. Who pays for it? Does the homeowner pay for it, or does the city pay for it? I'm not familiar with that. I appreciate your patience. You know, I'm new.
Oh, no. That is a great question. And that's usually an Alan question. In larger developments that are required to provide fire hydrants, the developer pays for it.
Okay, this is like the next step in the process. I think it's just a question and maybe a point of clarification that would be useful. I mean, I imagine fire hydrants are kind of expensive. If
Yeah.
they're needed, and 300 feet doesn't get you very far. So maybe that's something to consider as a suggestion going through this process, so there's no surprises that cause problems later, unduly hardships later because it wasn't made clear,
Right.
especially given where the house is.
Well, and what we can do is if Emily could flip through the slides, we can go back and look at the slide number 6 that shows the short plat, the enlarged piece of it. And so Mr. Illen's property is approximately 100 and maybe 120 feet deep.
On the diagram, does it show where the current closest fire hydrant is?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Yeah, so if there was one on 13th Street, it would have to be, over 100 feet away to not meet that requirement.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Yeah.
I live in a cul-de-sac and there's a fire hydrant in front of my house. I'm really fortunate that it's the only one on the whole block, which is a really long block.
May I have the floor for a moment?
Yes,
This is Margaret.
yes, you can.
Sarah, could you put the mic closer to you, please?
Yeah, sorry, Margaret. Is this better?
Much better.
Thank you. My apologies.
Okay, any more discussion from the council? Okay, with this, we'd like the applicant to please present their request and state your name and address and for the record. Is the applicant present? No?
Does not appear so.
Okay. With that, does the council have any questions or comments for the applicant, which happens to be absent? So we'll have to move on beyond that. And at this time, the floor is open for public comments. Any? No comments? Okay. With that, hearing no public comment, I guess at this point, we will close this hearing.
6:39.
Oh, thank you.
Because that one's different. So
Okay, and now we are going to conduct this second public hearing of the evening. And this will regard the comprehensive plan amendment. So let's say at 7:37.
Do you have to make,
Oh, sorry.
to make a recommendation from the plan?
Oh, I'm
commission?
sorry.
You're doing
Thank
great.
you. No.
You're doing great.
I need all help I can get. Okay, we'll back up. I didn't close the public hearing. We're gonna back up and request a, let's see, a recommendation for the city council. Sorry, I should have followed the script.
Come on, okay.
Sorry.
Millyanne, being that she closes, does she have to open it for the recommendation?
Yeah, can I void my closure of the meeting in order to proceed with the recommendation to?
I think she does since she closed it.
Doesn't she close it and then they deliberate and then they make the
Right,
motion?
yeah, right.
Okay, so you close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Okay, there you go.
And that's-
Thank you.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
If she-
Okay.
she can-
All righty, now we proceed with the recommendation for city council.
And so that can either be adopting HBL's motion, their draft motion, or modifying that, modifying the conditions.
Janet, the proposed recommendation or suggested motion is on page 9 of the
of the packet just after the conditions. This is Sarah Funk, and I'm going to abstain from voting.
Okay. Well, I can make a motion to accept the proposal as written with the variances. And with that, can we have a roll call?
So there's a motion if you want to read it.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. I can see it. It's up there now. Apology. I move to accept the staff report prepared for the proposed 2-lot short plat and the variance request for relief from the street frontage and adopt the suggested findings and fact in the report and forward the application to the city council with a recommendation of approval with the 10 listed conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye. We need one more aye.
Janet,
Janet,
Janet, you're on mute.
There. Am I there now?
yes.
Okay, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but is it typical for a applicant to not show up when the stuff comes up for a vote?
It can be, they
Yes.
don't, yeah, they don't have to be here.
Okay, so there's no requirement that they be there. It just seems odd to me that the person wouldn't show up, for this. Because this is obviously an important piece of of this project. Having said that, I don't see anything specifically objectionable to it, so I'll vote yes.
Thank you. We got a quorum, so the motion passes.
All right, so can I move to the next hearing? I'm just a little overeager, I guess. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to the public hearing for the comprehensive plan amendment. And with that, I open the hearing.
At 6:44.
Thank you. Okay, new scribe. Okay, the procedure for the public hearings involving a legislative matter shall be substantially, yes, as followed. The public hearing for the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment is now open at whatever.
6:44.
There you go. All persons wishing to be heard will be given an opportunity during the hearing. I will now read the rules of order. The public hearing will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask for the cooperation in the following procedures. We will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given the opportunity to be heard. When you address the commission, begin by saying your name and address, and please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone. The purpose of this hearing is for the Planning Commission to hear and consider pertinent facts and to take action relating to the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment docket. The order of speaking will be staff presentation, then comments from the applicant, then comments from proponents, opponents, and any other wishing to speak. Then any comments from the applicant in response. Then response from staff, and then questions from the Planning Commission members. And then we will initially start with the staff report. And I am speaking to Emily Weimer to present a report.
Very good, thank you. I'll get my PowerPoint loaded. My name is Emily Weimer. I work for AHBL, and for the new members on commission, it's my first time in front of you. So I just got back from maternity leave.
So congratulations.
The bottom right You should be able to start the presentation. That, yeah. This is the legislative public hearing for the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Annual Amendment Docket. Next slide, please. Yeah. The city opened the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Docket cycle, and that is quite a mouthful to say, with a deadline of October 29th, 2021. Notice was provided in various ways. Prior to that deadline, the city received 3 map amendment applications, and 2 of those also came with associated reasons. The city council held a public hearing to consider the applications, as well as a few staff recommended changes. And in order to create the docket, city council denied 1 map application, accepted 2 map applications, and added 2 additional map applications, as well as 1 minor text amendment. So the docket consists of 4 total map amendments, 2 city initiated, 2 private party applications, and then just the 1 text amendment. And here's a map of the city. You can kind of see the areas on the map. Up the very north end is item number 1. And then 3 items are at the very south end of this map, and it's enlarged to the right. These areas are outside of city limits, but are inside the urban growth area, the UGA. So they are included in Benton City's comprehensive plan. If you want to go to the next page, please. Oh, and I forgot to mention, since those 3 of the 4 map amendments are outside of city limits, the city of Benton City just designates the land use, and Benton County applies the zoning.
I've got a question. I'm just still seeing the flag. I haven't seen the last 2 slides.
I'd have to agree with Janet. I can't see him either.
Can you click on the slides, please?
I did, Margaret, and I couldn't see him.
No, I meant for Emily.
We are trying to figure that out. Just give us a moment, please.
Thank you.
Maybe stop sharing and reshare.
Thank you, excuse me. So speed 1, speed 2.
What do you see on your screen now?
I can see the map now.
Perfect. Okay, and if next slide, please. I'll just be running through each of the map applications, and then we'll go through the text amendment, and then we'll describe the process going forward. So this is the first application in the docket, CPA 2021-01, Olson. This is a map change with a rezone because it is in city limits, and it is private party initiated. The applicant is the Olson Brothers Ranches. The land use is currently commercial, and they applied to change to residential. And the associated rezone is from C-1 commercial to R-3, which is your residential high density district. And you can see this parcel is adjacent to Horn Drive on the west. And it's surrounded by farming. Next slide, please.
So it's just the area outlined in blue then, that's it, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's just 1 parcel, and it's that blue.
Okay, thank you.
And here are 2 maps. On the left, it shows the existing land use, which is commercial. And on the right is what they are requesting, which is residential. So you can see it's surrounded by both the existing and the proposed. So it's a good transition to residential. And next slide, please. And on the left, and this map is the existing zoning, the right is the proposed zoning. So the R3 is more of a higher density residential, and one of its main purposes is to be in transition district between commercial and the lower density residential. And you see the R2, which is a lower density residential across the street, Horn Drive to the east and to the south. So this would be a good transition between all that commercial land and the residential land. Here's our second application with an applicant. It's CPA 2021-02. This is a map change without a rezone because it's not in city limits, it's in the UGA. And this did have an applicant, and the applicant, I cannot pronounce their name, I'm sorry. Philip.
Jelistovsky.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a land use change of manufacturing light industrial to residential. And I will discuss a different city initiated application later, but I want you to know that this is adjacent to the other one. So when this application came in, we found this other area with similar circumstances, and we thought that those should be included, but they are in a separate application. So this site is currently vacant. It formerly had a residence. And so since it is industrial, it can't go back to a residence. So they tore down the home and can't rebuild it. Okay, next slide, please. This is the existing and the proposed land use. The parcel is on the west. You can see the blue outlines a little bit of the other application. So that's why the whole area is changing. But this application is just that one parcel where the arrow is pointing to. So there is residential to the south, and the parcel to the right is also proposing to be changed to residential. So if everything is approved, it'll be all residential south of Jacobs Road. And then to the west of that is outside of the UGA. So we do not designate those areas. Next slide, please. And CPA 2021-04 is the text change. It's just to update some data of population changes and employment and household data. So for example, since 2016 to 2020, you can see the city has grown quite a bit. So we just want to reflect those new numbers with the best available data that we have. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on to CPA 2021-05. And this is one of the city initiated ones. It is adjacent to Philip Jelistovsky. It's to the adjacent to the right of that area. So when we were examining that application, we found a few other parcels, 3 of them that were residential in nature, that were designated industrial. So in talking with the county, we recommended that this be included in the docket, and city council agreed, and they directed staff to contact the homeowners of these 3 parcels. So there's 3 parcels, one is unaddressed, and 2 of them do have addresses because they do already contain residences. So there's existing residences with industrial zoning, and that can cause a lot of problems. They are deemed legally non-conforming. So that means they have limitations on selling their property, finding insurance for their property, mortgaging their property, even doing some repairs of their property. So there's some limitations. So we're trying to clean that up to make sure that the existing residences have more rights. If you can go to the next slide, please. And here's the existing and the proposed land use. That yellow mustard is residential. So it is that area is largely residential. There's a little bit of industrial to the north. And then you can see kind of the train tracks are that gray swath between the highway and those parcels. So that's why the gray goes a little bit farther. That's just the train tracks. And next slide, please. Okay, and now this is our last item in the docket, CPA 2021-06. This is known as the Valley View Estates area. This was another area that we, as well as Benton County, identified that didn't really fit with the existing development and the designations. So there are 8 parcels. Some are partial because the UGA kind of split their parcels. That there are 8 parcels and they all contain residences, but they all have manufacturing light industrial designations. However, Benton County still has zoned it residential, so at least they don't have the same limitations because their zoning allows for residential development. However, it means that the comprehensive plan of Benton City does not align with the current zoning of Benton County. So they're conflicting. And this area is already developed as residential, so it's our recommendation to change the land use to residential. Next slide, please. And then here's the existing and the proposed land use. Again, that northern parcel where you can kind of see those lines, that's the railway. So there's no industrial land there, just the railway. And then to the west, you can see other residential areas. And then to the south is where the end of the UGA is. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a little bit of analysis. The code sets out 8 criteria for review in Municipal Code Chapter 2.70. There is a detailed analysis in your staff report, but I can just go over the highlights. Here are the 8 criteria, and we have outlined how the docket will not adversely impact the city's ability to provide services. There are adequate infrastructures and facilities available. These changes are consistent with goals, policies, and objectives of the comprehensive plan. It will not result in probable significant impacts. The lots are physically suitable for the allowed uses. It will not create a demand to change other land use designations. It's consistent with the Growth Management Act and the countywide planning policies, and it will not have a cumulative adverse effect on the planning area. Next slide, please. I should mention that if you go back to the analysis, so these criteria form the basis for the findings of fact that are suggested in the staff report. And there are additional criteria that apply to the rezone, which is detailed in your staff report. And then lastly, staff asserts that it's in the city's interest to adopt those amendments. And next slide, please. We did provide proper public noticing according to the Benton City Municipal Code. We issued a SEPA DNS, that's the environmental review. And above and beyond what is required in the code, the staff contacted, sent letters to all the owners of the city initiated map amendments. So those 2 applications, 3 in one and 8 in the other, they were all mailed letters requesting feedback and notifying them of the change and how it affects them. We did request some feedback back from that. And I do have a comment matrix. It's a little hard to see, but mostly we didn't hear from a lot of them. We heard from 2 out of the 3 of the South Jacobs area. 1 is opposed to it. 1 is for it. And we did not hear from the other one. And in addition to these comments from the property owners, we did receive 2 additional comment letters from our general public comments. Benton Clean Air provided an informational letter for future development. And then nearby owners, as well as the owners as one of the owners in the South Jacobs area, came together to write a letter in support of CPA 2021-05, which is the South Jacobs area. And it was signed by, I believe, I can't remember the exact number, but the letter is included in your packet. Okay. So our next steps are to forward a recommendation to City Council. Then after that, City Council may hold a public hearing if they wish. And then the City Council will have to adopt all, some, or none of the changes. So our staff recommendation is we recommend approval of the docket as proposed and the associated area-wide rezone, pending consideration of any testimony that we received during the public comment tonight and any facts presented during that portion. And then alternatively, Planning Commission can recommend the docket as proposed with the exception of that one parcel in CPA 2021-05, that South Jacobs area where the owner was opposed to the change. And other options include conducting another public hearing, directing staff to do more work, and or postponing your decision for another day. So in conclusion, staff recommends positive recommendation from the commission tonight in order to move this along on behalf of all those property owners that have applied and those who are affected by the conflicts in the zoning. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. As far as the last slide, I think that it was the 5021-01, I think. Krisher, I think was the guy's name. And he said that he was in contract for for selling the industrial. Do you know what the industrial use is at the current time?
They did not provide specifics. They just said possible industrial use. It's currently vacant.
Okay, all right, so it's currently vacant. Now, the other question I had, I was a little confused by one of the first slides. It was the one on Horn, where you had the existing development on one side of 225, and on the other side you had it's obvious farmland. I think it was like the second or third slide. And I guess, I don't know if this, again, I'm sort of baby stepping this one because I'm new to this whole process. But I was looking at that. Yeah, it's not any of the ones that are on the screen right now. It's way towards the beginning. But the question I had was they had this big piece of what looks like farmland, and they just cut out just a little piece of that. And do we know what's going to be built? It was set for high density. Are they going to build an apartment? What are they going to do with it? And why would they just cut out a small piece of it like that instead of having the whole piece of property there rezoned for residential? Because it looks like that's probably what's going to end up happening to it in the long term. So I'm kind of curious why they would take that approach. Just what appears to be a little piece at a time. Do you have any kind of input on that?
Sure. I can't say for sure what they plan to do. That will be subject to future permitting. But I do know that this is a separate parcel, so that's why they didn't include the other farm area, which is a pretty big parcel itself. So they only chose this one existing parcel at the time. And I know they are actively farming the rest of it. So for now, the plans are to keep that in farming. In the future, they may come in for another application or they may not. But
Okay.
the plan is, yeah, future development of residential in that parcel.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm just having trouble wrapping my head around why they wouldn't just go for it now. Maybe it's a financial thing. I don't know, but I mean, obviously, if they did get a rezone for all of the rest of that, that would have a pretty significant impact, I would think, on utilities and so forth. But I think that's out of the scope of what we're talking about. Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Any comments by the commission?
Not right now.
All right. And well, this kind of different. Do we ask for the applicants?
Yes,
Other
since
applicants?
There are applicants.
Okay, so I welcome the multiple applicants to.
Stay here.
Microphone.
Yeah, we would prefer you come up and state your name, please.
So my name is Philip Chelstowski. I submitted for application of rezoning for the light industrial to residential on Jacobs Road. So I guess I want to give you guys a little bit of background of why we are pursuing this. When we originally came to the area, we really liked it. Next to the vineyards, beautiful view, and all around were, residences, duplex, mobile homes and manufactured homes. And there was no indication that it was light industrial based on what we observed and what we saw, people living there. So we made an assumption without, I guess, doing our due diligence of looking into the zoning. And we bought the property and we removed the mobile home because we wanted to put a site-built house up there because the mobile home was dilapidated. It was falling apart. When we get to the county said, you can't do residence there. It's light industrial. And we're like, what's happening? So we got attorneys involved and we try to figure this out, trying to get variances and anything possible to let us build it. The county said at this time, we can't allow anything. The only option would be to go to the city, have them make the amendment, then they would honor it, and then you'd be able to issue that, zone change or land use change. So that's where we're at right now. We want to be able to build a residence up there. I know that I submitted for just my parcel, but the city said that it would incorporate the other 3 parcels alongside it. And I support all of those 3 parcels to be also incorporated and changed to residential. We have Jeannie's here with me and she supports it. And she noted in there, and I talked to Tracy Hunsinger, the other owner, and they also support it because he has a family that is growing and he wants to eventually put up a bigger mobile home up there, and current use doesn't allow it. So he's kind of limited, and to get a mortgage on it, the bank won't give it to it. And Jeannie encountered selling that property and she couldn't sell it because, the sale went, the pending offer was accepted, everything was good. And then the bank did a title search on it and it's light industrial, we can't mortgage it. And so that sale fell through, and, I can't even imagine the headache that she went through, but it was very unfortunate. The third property that's over there is vacant, so there's nothing on there right now, and they're opposed to it, which I think it would bring in the equal or more financial if they change it to residential, because you guys know how the climate is right now. You can't find lots and they're very hard to come by. And if they were to keep it, it was mentioned that they may, leave that parcel as it is as light industrial. I'm opposed to it because that's going to disrupt my view of the land. It's going to disrupt the neighbor's view of the land. I don't know what they plan to put up there. Is there going to be huge shops or storages? And we bought the property because the area was, it looked like it was a residential area. So I'm opposed to keeping it light industrial. I want, all of it to change. And so 3 out of the 4 would like it. And I'm hoping that, Cody, he changes his, his stance on it. But, at this time, I haven't heard that. So I'm opposed for it to be, just that one to stay as light industrial because it's going to affect my resale. And, because I have a private road that goes through there. And if there's a bunch of big shops right next door, it's going to affect, my, peace and ability to use my property. And I don't know if they're going to have heavy machinery out there, loud machinery, what they're going to be doing over there. So I'm hesitant to allow it to be light industrial. So even if, currently the zoning, if a property is, house is burnt on it, a mobile home, you can't replace it. So your hands are tied. And so you're very restricted on exactly what you can do. So I'm in favor of rezoning all 4 lots including my own, into residential so that we can enjoy our properties and enjoy being part of the community of Benton City. Thank you.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Questions?
Oh, yes.
Questions? Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing with us again tonight. I think you shared with city council earlier in the process. I just had a question as a point of clarification. How long have you been working on this process for?
Since essentially we purchased it back in 2019.
Okay.
So it's been 3 years since we've been working on this. So it's dear to my heart to finish this and get it completed, because 3 years is a long time to try to work on it. And we're hoping that we can get this approved and passed. So yes, it's been a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost my place in the script.
Are we still on, we're still on public comments, right? After
Yeah.
people
If there's,
comment.
Yes.
yeah, any other applicants?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jean Barron, 6501 East Jacobs Road, Northeast, Benton City, Washington, 99320. I just want to say I bought my home. I'm gonna cry. I bought my home. Found out if it burns down, I'm SOL. Please change it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Without any more public comments, present.
You can close the public
Oh,
comment portion.
okay, I'm gonna
at the stated time.
Okay, at this time of 11:17, I close the public comment portion of this meeting.
Correction, 7:13.
Oh, 7.
That's great. That clock doesn't agree. You're doing great.
Okay. All righty. So with that, can we move on to the next public hearing?
You got the.
Oh, we have to
You
do
can
the,
do
okay,
discussion and. ask for-
discussion.
Meaning the back part of the second.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
There
Okay,
you go.
okay, thank you. This is my first time, everybody.
You're doing great. You're doing a great job.
You're doing fine.
Okay. Let's see. We're there. We did that. I guess we open it for discussion with the commission.
This is Sarah Funk, and I just wanted to thank again for people coming in for public comment, and also a big thanks to AHBL, because I think, previously in our history of Benton City, I think other residents had been unduly affected by things like this, where the code kind of gets out of line over time between the city and the county and everything else, and that can make it really hard for residents. So it seems like this is a step in the right direction to move these things forward. That's my comment, and I have a question though too. So the question that I have is separate from the great testimony that we just had. There is this one person who is opposed on 2021-5, which is further down, and we don't have anybody here to talk about that. And this person is opposed because they want to sell something as light industrial. How do you work to manage that?
Can you go to slide 9? It would help to look at the aerial. So since it's outside of Benton City, they are subject to Benton County rules. And I'm not sure if they have additional setback requirements between those different zones. But I wish I had a good map of the parcel. It's in the middle. So if it was not changed to residential, it would be surrounded by residential to the west, the east, and the south.
Thank you for the
So,
clarification. I think
There,
that's
there's
an
some
important one.
potential conflicts with that.
What type of exposure could the city be exposed to, though, if you got somebody saying there's a pending sale a couple weeks ago or something like that, and then you change the zoning on them?
Well, there's no vested right to zoning. However, if the owner of that parcel submitted an application for industrial use before the zone change, they'd be vested in industrial use. So you don't have a right to a continued zone as such. But, you know, until it changes, they could submit a permit and then we have a bizarre configuration, yeah, I would say.
This isn't a fair thing to put you on the spot, Rebecca, or anybody else from the city, but do we know if in the last few days, or even, you know, when we started calling around, do we know if they've put any applications in?
They would actually, I think, be put into the county, not to the city, because they're in the county,
Thank you, yes.
but
of
they're in
course.
the, but they're part of the UGA. And actually, we have gotten 2 applications from the county, and county sends them to us just out of courtesy to let us know who's applying in the county. But I don't think this was one of the addresses.
The last I heard when I talked to the county, within the last 2 weeks, I can't remember exactly when, but they had not seen anything yet.
Mm-mm. So if we were to change the zoning, that's where I was gonna go to you, Jeff. If we change the zoning and they submit an application in the crosshairs of us changing it, will the county abide by what we changed it to, or will they abide by what it is when they applied to them? Being that we're in the
suppose-
transition of it.
Right, I suppose that's between the county and the city, but really it should be governed by the county-wide planning policies. I would
Okay.
imagine there's some, and I haven't reviewed those thoroughly in advance of this, so I couldn't tell you specifically, but generally, you don't want to have, as Weimer was pointing out, a situation where the county and city aren't matching up in those UGAs. You gotta incorporate UGAs because it could lead to problems, so certainly, but if they did vest an application, you could still change the zone in theory, then the shoe would be on the other foot, they would have the non-conforming use as industrial, and the residentials would be conforming. So it would just be the same situation, but sort of opposite, where they could be amortized if they, you know, if it burned down or had to be repaired or something like that.
So on that, I have a question for Emily. Being that 2021-05, if that one wants to abstain from being changed, can that still go on the docket and move forward? Or does the whole thing have to stop?
It's a legislative item, so the city council can decide regardless of the property owner.
Okay.
And they don't have to follow the recommendation of the commission either. It's just a
Correct.
recommendation.
So can the planning commission recommend approval of 2021-05 to move forward with the exclusion of that property?
Yes, it can.
Okay,
If we wanted to.
if you wanted to, that's what I'm saying.
So more discussion, or otherwise, like equally so, would it be acceptable to move forward with the recommendations as proposed? And maybe when this goes back to council, clean up that map a little bit to show where the person objects, so it's clear to council that this is in the middle of this big storm of property, and why that'd be tricky.
The docket, sorry, Janet, you want to go?
Yeah, I did have a question about something. God, this situation just brings to mind about 1 billion questions in my mind. You know, as a commission or as the city council later, is there any investigation that we do, like we talk to the landowners, find out what do we have the right, I guess is a better question, to ask them what their intentions are for the property, and you know what they're going to do, how they plan to do this. You know, has there been any discussion between them and the adjacent landowners about how the whole thing's gonna play out? Or is that the kind of stuff where we're sort of hands off on that kind of thing? I guess what I've got stuck in my mind is that whole thing that we talked about at the beginning of this, the earlier part of the year about the right of the landowner to enjoy his property. And, you get something, a situation like this, I mean, you got potentially diametrically opposed viewpoints on quote, enjoyment of property, unquote. And I'm just trying to figure out a way out of that. Over.
I can address a little bit of that. This is a legislative item, so it affects a lot of different things. You can certainly ask if they have any plans, but this is not an application for a specific land use. You have to look at the residential land use as a whole. So anything allowed in residential. If they say they're doing one thing, there's nothing that binds them to doing that one thing. So it's really important to just stay focused on just the general issue of land use, what's possible, what's not possible, regardless of what their possible plans are.
Okay, I understand that. But is there any place within the process where they're more or less tied down to what they're going to do once we make our decision, or is it always just going to be sort of in flux?
I think in terms of the participation of the landowner, this would be the time for them to be here, would be during the notice and comment period. And we really want to stick to what's in our code in terms of how we're providing notice for these meetings and having discussions in an open, public meeting or hearing, so that everyone can participate and know what's going on in the process. So it can be problematic to sort of, single out individuals and give them more preferential treatment. I think we've really got to give them the notice and ability to come here and participate in the process that's in the code, and go from there.
Okay, so it's really up to them to be informed as to what their rights are.
Yes.
That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
Okay, that's totally fine. I'm like I said, I'm just trying to figure out what the parameters of all this are. So I'm not advocating for either side of this. I just want to make that very clear. I'm just sort of putting out some what if questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to discuss a little bit because I do feel that one of I guess I'll call him the objector, did partake because they provided written comments, even though they didn't show up to verbally express themselves. I believe they should have equal consideration as those people that did show up. So that's my personal feeling. So anyhow, anybody objects, please let me know. Okay. Any further discussions? Or are we ready to propose a motion?
Can I say something?
Well, maybe.
Sorry. I think it's important to consider those people and their homes and the value of their homes and the fact that their homes aren't even replaceable. And if we go through with this, there'll just be more county homes that are in counties rather than in the city. We have a lot of homes that are residents in the county. And I think these people should have the same right. That's all. Could you hear me?
Oh,
can
yes,
hear you.
barely in it.
Thank you, Michelle.
I move to recommend approval of the 2021 comprehensive plan amendment docket to city council. I further recommend approval of the associated rezone.
I second it.
With that, can we have a roll call on
All in favor, say aye.
I?
Bye.
I
Thank you. So just to clarify, you made the motion for the whole docket to go through as presented?
Yep.
Yes.
With the request for AHBL that when they present this to council, for the objector to improve the diagram a little bit, to call out the opposer's land plot, so it's more visible to show that it's in the middle.
Just wanted to clarify that.
I was writing.
Okay. Move on to another public hearing regarding Title 17 of the amendment. But because I'm a chair, I'm going to call a break for a moment because I need a break. Anybody else want to take a couple of minutes?
Yes, I want to
Yes.
take a couple minutes.
Can we take a 5-minute break? As we have to
Yes,
say how long
please,
it is?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yes,
Thank you,
We'll
everyone.
be taking a 5-minute break.
good call. We're going to proceed with the public hearing on the proposed Title 17 amendments. With that, I will begin the public hearing. Procedure for the public hearing involves a.
7:30.
Thank you. The procedure of a public hearing involving a legislative matter shall be substantially as follows. The public hearing for the Title 17 subdivision code amendment is now open at 7:28 PM.
7:31.
All persons wishing to be heard will be given an opportunity during the hearing. I will now read the rules of order. The public hearing will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask your cooperation in the following procedures. We will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask you for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. When you address the commission, begin by stating your name and address, and please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone. The purpose of this hearing is for the Planning Commission to hear and consider pertinent facts and to take action relating to the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment docket.
Section Title 17.
I'm like, what the heck? Am I
It's
out
the
of
same
order?
procedure.
It's the same script, we just changed the names.
Okay, that's what.
You're fine.
Okay, so that's Title 17. I'll correct that for the record regarding subdivisions. The order of speaking will be staff presentations, then comments from the applicant, then comments from proponents, opponents, and any others wishing to speak, then any comment from the applicant in response. Then response from staff, and then questions from the Planning Commission members. And from that, we will have staff report.
Should we let them, the
Oh,
people who are outside know?
I just assumed they all left.
I think we have two kind of
Okay, thank you.
citizens that may want to
Thank you.
participate in our room.
Yeah,
We don't have very many people here for the public hearing. We want to make sure everyone is heard,
yes. Thank you for making.
has the
note of
opportunity to
that.
participate.
They're leaving.
Oh. Okay,
Now we give them a chance.
so there's two people there's two guests on the phone though, right? That may have public comment? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
and they can partake through that forum. Okay,
Okay, you ready?
yes.
Again, I'm Millie Ann Van Devender with AHBL, contract planner for Benton City. And I'm going to present to you a staff report on proposed amendments to Title 17 of the Benton City Municipal Code. That is your subdivision section. Next slide. So just to give a tiny bit of history before we get started, this will probably look familiar to you. This is the fourth time that we've brought it to the Planning Commission, and not to belabor, I think is the word, the point, but we just really, these are important changes, and we really wanted to make sure that everybody understood and had an opportunity to discuss it. and to talk about it. It's a legislative item, so that's perfectly within the parameters. And then the most recent, if you'll remember, the most recent time we talked about this was at the workshop in March. So this is going to sound really familiar, and I'll try to go through it pretty quickly. It's a repeat of similar information, but because we do have public here, I want to make sure that everybody's getting the same information. So what is the Benton City Municipal Code Title 17? The purpose of Title 17 subdivisions is to regulate the division of land in Benton City to ensure the protection of public health, safety, and general welfare. It also is written to comply with state guidelines regarding boundaries of properties and plats, and that's in 5817 RCW. And then the standards included in this title are intended to prevent overcrowding of land, to lessen congestion of streets and highways, to provide proper ingress and egress, to provide adequate space, water storage, sewage, parks, recreation, schools, walkways, and other public uses, and to assure uniform monumenting of land subdivisions and conveyancing by accurate legal descriptions. It's your subdivision code. So this is where we look when a developer or a landowner wants to divide their property, similar to the short plat that we discussed earlier. This code chapter also gives us the rules for preliminary plats, so for large subdivisions as well as small subdivisions. Next slide. So you might ask, why should we update it? We have the code. Why do we need to update it? Well,
Can I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
The slides aren't changing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tell us. I went to screen 2.
We're still on Title 17 Subdivision Planning Commission. There. Now I can see you.
You can see me.
And no slides.
So I had to stop sharing.
We're on the first slide now. Now it's changed. Thank you.
Does it say why update?
It says, what is Benton City Multiple Code Title 17? We're on the slide 2. Now we can see you again.
Bear with us. How about now?
Now it says why
Good.
update.
Why update? Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's nice to be able to do the hybrid, to do in person for those that can be here, but also to have the ability to do the video. You just have to bear with us with the process. Okay. So why should we update Title 17? Well, one of the reasons is because it hasn't been updated in a very long time. I don't have the dates right in front of me. We went through it in the workshop, but it's been a while. There have been little updates here and there, little corrections and little changes through the years, but there hasn't been an overhaul of the whole chapter. And it's evident that that needs to happen. So the update is necessary in order to improve subdivision permitting processes and procedures. So there were some outdated processes in there. There's different things that we don't ask for anymore when applicants bring in an application, and just some confusing information about the process. And then another reason is to ensure compliance with state laws. Their state laws change from time to time. And so one of the things that we did was to go through and sort of do a scrub of that and to make sure that all of those changes are reflected in your code. And then also to aid in diminishing the city's risk. So so some of the things that we updated, we identified and added items that weren't previously included. So there was not a section on boundary line adjustments, which is just when it was exactly what it sounds like. It's when a lot line gets moved or gets adjusted. And there was mention of that in the code. There was a little bit of information in the code about it, and it's been allowed and it's been happening. And there was actually an application for it with the city, but there was not any procedure, process, or rules for doing it in the code. So we're suggesting to add that. And then there wasn't any information about sidewalks, or not good flushed out information. So we also are recommending that we revised several chapters and sections to update the application requirements, like I was talking about, to streamline the review process and to clarify the appeal procedures. And then we tried to consolidate information wherever it was appropriate so that there's not repetitive. It makes it more efficient. Like I said, we edited the whole title so it will comply with state law, and then removed or adjusted redundant information and contradictory sections. And then just in general, fixed typos and grammar. So just to hit on some quick highlights in the definitions section, we added definitions for binding site plan, boundary line adjustment, surety, and tax parcels consolidation. There was some confusion in the code about site plans because the term site plan was sort of bantied about in different ways. And sometimes it meant a binding site plan, and sometimes it meant what is a commercial or industrial site plan, which is when we actually look at the layout of the property, and they're two different things. So we really tried to hone in on that and really make that clear that it's two different things. So where that comes into Title 17 is for binding site plans, which is an alternative way of dividing property in industrial and commercial areas. And then we added a new chapter on boundary line adjustments, which I spoke to you a moment ago. We also clarified some information in the short plat chapter. So we clarified the list of projects that are exempt from short plats. We improved the list of requirements for short plat applications, just to make it clear for people that are applying so that there's some consistency and there's some, they can depend on that. They can see, okay, I go to the code and I see that this is what's required, and I'm not going to get told something else later because it's right there. And then we provided more detailed information regarding the administrative review process, and then made general edits throughout that chapter. The binding site plan part I already talked about. We clarified so it's relevant to binding site plans and not industrial or commercial site plans, which is a different process. And then in the subdivisions chapter, we just basically cleaned it up. We removed and added items, touched on the application requirements, verified, changed anything that was out of place, and then just explained the process better and made it all comply better with Washington state law. The other highlights that I hit on already, sidewalks, like I said, we added some to that. Dust control, we expanded the dust control section because it was pretty inconsequential. So we beefed that up some. And we changed the name of the chapter of variances to deviations because there are variances from zoning requirements. And we wanted to make it clear that a variance from or a deviation from a subdivision requirement is a separate process. It's a different situation. They're very similar, but just to give it some clarity there. Something else that we did was work on an impact fee chapter. So the title of the chapter used to be land dedication, and it wasn't all about land dedication. So we changed it to impact fees. We added a purpose section to that chapter. There was a whole section in the Benton City Code on impact fee deferral program. So we moved that into this umbrella. We didn't really change that section. We just moved it under this umbrella of the impact fees chapter. And it now includes information on more than just parkland dedications, which is what it had before. Because there's a provision that you don't have to dedicate, you can pay a fee. So we wanted to clarify all that and get it all in one place. And then we also inserted sections to act as placeholders if the city ever wanted to add more impact mitigation requirements in the future. Just makes it easier for you to plug it in to that spot. And like I always do, I brought you some suggested findings of fact. And these are just basic facts. The Benton City has proposed to amend it. Here are the numbers. So it was adopted in 1981, and then there have been minor amendments several years since then, 2018 being the most recent minor amendment. And then we talk about the purpose there in the findings, the intention. It's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. processed it according to the code, and there is merit and value in the proposal for the community as a whole. So the recommendation from staff at this point is that you hold your public hearing like you're doing, which is legislative on the proposed amendments. And then following the hearing, we recommend that you recommend to City Council that the changes be approved via adoption of the ordinance. Let's see, did I provide you a draft ordinance in the packet? Okay, yes, so it's there. That's basically what it will look like. And then to be clear with the process that you were reading earlier about the comp plan, there are no specific applicants for this because it was a
Right.
city staff brought issue. So when you open it for public hearing, it'll just be, I mean, when you open it for public comment, it will just be anybody.
Okay, great.
So that concludes the staff report presentation.
Okay. And then we go to the planning commission discussion.
Do you have any questions for me? I think is what's next. With legislative, we can be a little looser too with the
Okay.
process. Are there any questions for staff?
Their staff, not me. Yeah. Maybe everyone else, I have a question, but maybe everyone else can go first. I can save mine till then.
I've been through this like 4 times, so I've asked a lot of my questions already.
And I think that's fair. I mean, we're really fortunate that there's, 2 of the 5 people returning to planning commission. This is the second time for some of us going through it. And they're big changes and they're good changes. I guess I'll just continue. I made a comment during our workshop on the changes referenced on page 11 to the short plat going from 4 lots to 9 lots. And I just have to say, I really appreciate, and it's such a good job you all have done to say we need to make these updates and we need to bring things current. And I need to stay on topic and on agenda, but we have real traffic issues. And when I'd ask the question and it's in the minutes under 00 from our workshop, why do we have to go from 4 to 9 lots? There's no reason, right? I mean, what I mean is it doesn't have to be 9. It's not a magic number. It's a number that's common that you've seen other places. And, these short plots aren't going to go through any legislative process. And I know there's a need for the city to be more efficient and not for no one to be able to slow the process down so much. But I think there's a lot of moving pieces that are happening in the city. And I just still have concerns around a short plat moving from 4 to 9 without some of the oversight and attention they may have got previously, especially given the growth and traffic issues that we're facing and the fact that, let's see if we actually have any public comments tonight. I know this isn't the last step in the process, but that would kind of be a concern or a comment that I'd like to share. Do you have any, can I turn, I don't know how to turn that into a question, but
Okay.
can you help me be more comfortable?
I can try. So the SEPA trigger for lots has gone from 4 to 9. So SEPA review, even if it comes to you, even if a 5 lot short plat comes to you under the Benton City Code, it would not go under SEPA review until it is more than 9 lots, till it hits the 10 threshold. I can offer you some comfort in knowing that when we review a short plat, we're looking at the code, we're following the code. The changes that we're suggesting, such as the sidewalk provisions and the dust provisions, I think that is going to help fill in some of those gaps for short plats, especially because that's, as a reviewer, I've struggled to find when or where or how sidewalks are required or if they're required. So yeah, that being added, I think will help things a lot with short plats, especially. And the dust section, it's dusty in the Tri-Cities. I think adding that's typically in some places, that's just something that gets caught by SEPA. Meaning it becomes like a SEPA mitigation measure to require dust control, but this is making it's part of your code now. We've just tried to expand it some. So that's another piece. I can also say that short plats are reviewed by all the different departments. So that being said, it goes to Public Works, it goes to planning, and it goes to engineering and fire. We make sure, or we try to make sure that fire sees it also and gets a chance to comment on it. So I think with all of those eyes on it, on the short plats, I think that is sufficient to provide good review and good feedback on a short plat in order to get good development.
Can I say something? I completely agree with Milliana and Commissioner Wallace. The first time I read 17 was in 2013, and the revisions that have been put in place are done really well. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any of the other commissioners have comments, input? Okay, well, this is Jeannie, and I would like to discuss something. And I don't know where it fits, if it's in the planning process, or maybe the city council can address it, but we have some serious traffic issues in this town. And there are a lot of people that are concerned and unhappy because we've had so much population growth, and we basically have, well, it's one main artery, but we have 3 points of access. And so it's not just driving through town and whether the roads can hold the load. It's trying to get egress into and out of businesses, onto the different various roads. I live on the east side, I guess, of the main road, and trying to get out onto the main road, it's crazy. I have to add like 5 to 10 minutes extra. If for a town this size, it's kind of not good. And it's a very consistent concern that I'm not sure if we need to address it in the planning commission or at what level, because that is an overall problem, and it's getting worse as we continue to develop and increase the population in the town. And we need to start addressing this sooner than later, because it's just kind of went by the wayside, and we've been looking at, doing short plats and, doing the administrative stuff. And I don't know where to incorporate that, or if we can propose that for future discussion within the commission or.
Sunshine.
Yes.
The city council several meetings ago talked about buying speed recognition so that they could watch the speeding and work with the county on that. Also, last night, I was at the city council meeting, and they are putting a moratorium on these things until they can address more serious issues. So passing 17 tonight isn't going to obstruct any of the things that the council is working on as far as congestion and speed control.
And I concur with you, Michelle. It was just at some point, this topic needed to come up, and I'm not sure if it's in this document or how we would address that. So
I think this is a good time to bring it up because subdivisions certainly contribute to traffic.
Exactly.
You had something to add, Malia?
I do have something to add, if that's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So one of the things that we, so if I can just bring your attention to, at the top, it's labeled page 17, and it's in the part of the code that's got the strikeouts and the underlines, and it's a big mess, right? So under 1712-070 roads and rights of way. So I think that the point that you're bringing up, like you said, it needs to be brought up somewhere. And I think in terms of how it relates to the subdivision code, there are some things in here that we've amended and added or suggested adding in order to try to make things better. So under A, or let's see, let's start with C. If a proposed short plat abuts an existing right-of-way with sufficient width as established by the city street plan, the city engineer may recommend that the right-of-way be improved to city standards, including but not limited to improvements such as sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. And so that's saying that it's not necessarily going to decrease your traffic, but make it safer for pedestrians and make the roads better so that, and put that onus on the developer of the short plat to provide the sidewalks, the curbs and gutters, the improvements. Sometimes a short plat will actually require paving for the full width or at least half of the width of the road. And the engineer's looking at that. So this is the time just to consider how the subdivision code can help answer your question or help improve the traffic situation in those ways. Like how can you, what can you ask the developers to do? What can you put in your code as requirements?
Yes, and I appreciate that. And I understand it in this context, but it's a bigger issue. It's the existing properties, the existing residents and businesses. I think we're to the point in this town where it's incredibly inconvenient and in some places potentially dangerous to try to, get onto these main arteries and such. And that's why I'm bringing it up here. And I don't mean it in context. I think you've done a good job and you've addressed it in regard to subdivisions. My comment was, how do we address this at a larger area and bring that together? Or can we even do this at the planning commission level? Or is it something more appropriate for the city council? I don't know.
I say something to Commissioner Wallace. It would probably be good to come to the meeting for the city council and have that put on the agenda to address traffic and speeding and what we can do to rectify that. Because the sheriff's department comes as well, and they talk to him about crime, and that could be helpful.
And this is Sarah. I think that the city has put more of like the counters down. It takes time to go through the process with it being on a highway. It seems like it's maybe a little bit slow, like a lot of things, but hopefully it gets more traction quickly. And traffic mitigation fees do apply to subdivisions, but it sounds like we're probably still steps away of different areas of improvement and justification for being able to consider that. And then again, that's only for new construction. That doesn't help with the existing problems, but changes for traffic control can be really expensive.
Yes,
so obtaining
exactly.
Could be a helpful thing to not have to burden the city or the current taxpayers with all the costs.
Right. And we do need to be forward thinking, and that's part of mine, because I'm telling you, to live in this small town and have to take your life on the line just to cross the road so you can head, east. It's really, I can't find a good, safe place to do it. There's 4 or 5 places where I can, if I could drive up by the Methodist church, by the school and take a left, that's pretty safe. But any of the other places, you can't see, the traffic's so heavy, even going out like 7th at the end of the south side of 7th, trying to get onto the main road with the traffic coming around the corner. And it's not good. It's not safe. And so I'll shut up, but, and it's not just me. I'm hearing a lot of complaints about that. And being on a planning commission, it's like I can't do anything. So I don't know how to respond to these folks other than to send them to the city council, which I'd be happy to go there myself because I'm experiencing some hazardous driving conditions out there on a daily basis. So anyhow, we'll leave it with that. Sorry, I got.
Well, if I may, I would just say that it sounds like it's a different topic than the subdivisions, but it's something that you could ask council, you could bring your concern to council, and then council could assign staff to work on a traffic plan or some kind of study, or maybe there are other parts of your code that could be improved
right
to help the situation.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you for listening to me.
Could I just add something to that? If
Yes.
you don't mind. You know, having lived in a lot of different, really seriously crowded urban areas and coming here, you know, our perspective on the traffic is different than yours. And the way I look at this, the way this town is laid out, the only way that they're going to fix this is by blasting another bypass or something like that, because you don't have the surface streets here to accommodate the traffic that's here, much less with any new developments. It's just, there just isn't enough to handle it. And the second comment I'd make on that, short, you know, but doing a new bypass would be really expensive because you'd have to go through people's property and all that sort of thing. I mean, I really think a lot of this is going to have to get down to enforcement. And so that's going to be a lot of interface with the county, the county sheriff, and figuring how to fix that. Because here, I live at the corner of at Babs by the flagpole here, and you're right, it's a racetrack out there, especially in the morning. And I think all it would take would be, you know, a pretty decent presence there, like they do on Horn Road out to the reach out there, because they've got cops over there all the time that are getting tickets for plant workers or people that work on Hanford. And I know that slows them down somewhat, and that's kind of what we're going to have to do here in the short term. I don't have a long-term suggestion, but in the short term, I think that's kind of critical mass to coin a phrase. So that's what I think.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a point of clarification. I have no concerns about how fast people are driving. It's being able to safely get on and off the roads. That's what I'm saying. And I don't want to bypass. I think maybe a stoplight or something, you know, those are relatively economical solutions to hazardous things. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that it's a city council matter and they need to work with Benton County Sheriff's Department. And we should probably move on to chapter 17.
Okay.
Public comment?
Oh, okay. Any public comments on chapter 17, subdivision revision? Yes, sir.
There was a comment about the traffic.
Okay.
I just agree with you because I was born and raised in Benton City and my parents live off 7th Street, and going on to 225 is a pain in the butt. Before you just stop, go. Now you gotta wait, and it's sometimes you gotta like try to squeeze in. I think it would be nice to have some kind of stoplight so that we can mitigate some of the, you know, allow people to go onto the road. You know, in terms of speeding, I don't see it as big of an issue of speeding. There is that, but I think, you know, if we can use some, you know, essential spots where we're at stoplights, especially off 7th, and, you know, there's other ones that are very busy that would allow, you know, citizens to safely go on to, you know, 225, you know, this main interstate that goes through to the city. But I think that would be beneficial.
It's an added benefit for pedestrians too. It slows some of these cars down. Is there anybody on the bridge that has any public comments? Would they unmute
What do you mean on the
on
bridge?
the Zoom?
On the Zoom. I was like, on the bridge.
On the Zoom?
Yes, any public on the Zoom that would like to participate in this public hearing? Hearing none.
Preferably something about chapter 17.
Yes, please.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Name's Noah Weber. I live at 504 9th Street in Benton City. I've been doing quite a few residential projects here in Benton City, roughly about 15. And just through the year of doing that, I think the planning commission or dealing with planning has definitely gotten a lot better. So in efforts of like making the code more clear on dust control and short plats and having a better defined code helps out a ton on my end, so that we're not trying to say if this is okay or if this isn't okay. So a lot more clarification in the code, I think, is very beneficial to developers. And it makes it a lot easier on our end to work with the city and make sure that everything that is required is getting done in a timely manner. Because just like everyone, time is a big deal. So when you have to go through the process multiple times because the code isn't clear, it makes it tough. So I am for updating the code and staying current with everyone else's code.
Thank you so much. Especially a compliment. Any other comments? Hearing none?
It looks like Jeremy is trying to say something. He kind of came off mute. Did you see that?
Yeah. Is Jeremy trying to say something? Maybe not. Oh, okay, no.
His mic is muted.
We're good. We're good.
Okay. Okay, we'll take these off so I can read. Okay, at this point, I guess we close the public meeting. Okay, at what time is it?
8:05.
At 8:05, we close the public meeting. And with that, I guess we're done with public meeting. We move on to.
Next is, it's subject open for discussion by commission and then the recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I think I did this in that, the order backwards. So do we have any discussion regarding this amendment from the commissioners?
I'm in favor of amending chapter 17 as written.
I'll second that. Are you gonna read the suggested language, Michelle, or would you like?
I
me-
don't have that in front of me, and I don't know if anyone could take it.
Yep, I could read it for you.
Sarah,
Thank you.
I move to accept the staff report and the proposed amendments to Title 17 subdivisions, adopt the suggested findings of fact in the report, and forward the application to the city council with a recommendation of approval.
So I have a
Thank you.
first, I have a second. All in favor?
aye.
I. Janet,
Janet?
Janet's muted.
Janet, you're on mute.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
So that concludes the portion of our public hearings. We're now going to,
Discussion
of the Titans. Yeah.
of that. Pardon me.
No, public hearings done.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So.
Next, we have on the agenda to discuss the for dates for further meetings.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So we don't have a standing meeting time anymore?
So there's not anything in your code that says when planning commission is supposed to meet. So when we first started working with the city, we were told it was, some of us remember that it was the last Wednesday of the month, and some of us remember that it was the fourth Wednesday of the month. So we've been using that.
Mhm.
But then with new members, there were suggestions that maybe a different day would work better. If you're happy with the day it is now, that's fine. It does pose challenges for staff because on weeks like this, we'll have back-to-back city council
Oh,
Tuesday night and then planning commission Wednesday night, which is not impossible. But it does happen occasionally. So if you're happy with the way it is now, you can leave it, or I think Margaret sent around some available dates.
The thing is, when are you guys available?
Yeah, and
Because
we-
I'm available any day.
And-
It's when you guys, 'cause you guys work with other cities and other
Mhm.
counties and other,
Mhm.
jurisdictions.
And we've heard from AHBL in January and in February and in March that there is not any flexibility because there's not room in your schedule. other than what you proposed, which was an annual calendar, including moving the spring break session out to tonight instead of what was proposed. So I think Planning Commission, although I'm going to be moving off, probably has a bit of, wants to provide flexibility. But I think there's a lot of work for Planning Commission to do. I think the time's never been about to be busier for work of the Planning Commission to do. And having set meetings is going to be imperative and critical whenever those are.
One of the things that I've been here for 8 months, and one of the things I've noticed is that you guys try to jam pack a workshop and a regular meeting in one.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of compacted. So I don't know if you guys want to move to 2 meetings a week like the council, 1 workshop, 1 regular. That's your guys' decision. I'm your guys' clerk. I'm available whenever you guys are.
And we
But-
did provide a grid of availability for days and
Yeah, I
blocked
don't
it
remember
out.
what they are though.
I don't either. We sent that to Margaret, and Margaret, I believe, emailed it to the commissioners with a grid of days of the week. And we suggested that, maybe there are other
Offset
meeting
days.
nights, like PTO meeting nights that you might know about in your community that you shouldn't meet on that night or whatever. We did provide our availability.
Margaret,
I don't have that.
do you have it in front of you? I don't know if I can pull it up on my email in this room. I think generally it was the first Wednesday set. I recall because we spent a lot of time talking about it and I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and scheduling is super important. That the first Wednesday of the month, at least what was initially proposed at the start of 2022, would be for work like this, and it'd be a standing meeting unless it wasn't needed. And then I believe it was the third Wednesday being set for workshops. However, 2 meetings a month wasn't conducive to AHBL's schedule because it wasn't resourced and you were at max capacity.
Yeah, it's,
So I understand and appreciate I'm moving off of Planning Commission. You're going to be filling in a spot with new people.
Okay, I got it here.
Okay.
So the first month, the following chart shows the dates that would work, no color, and dates that Pasco AHBL staff has already committed. So you guys are available the second Monday, but it does conflict with the BC KIB board meetings. You guys are available on the second Tuesday, the second Thursday, the first Thursday, the third Wednesday, the third Thursday, and the fourth Thursday. Currently, the first Wednesdays are reserved for BC Planning Commission.
Which is this meeting.
Yes. Normally, yes. So
So is that in May that you're speaking of?
it's just in general. So it looks like they're by looking at this chart, it looks like Thursday is their most available day.
Other than the Wednesday, the first Wednesday of the month that's already committed.
Yeah. Thursday. So if you're wanting to move it from Wednesday to Thursday, you guys can do that and then choose any one of the Thursdays of the week because they're available first, second, third, and fourth.
and then there were some Mondays and,
Well, you guys have Connell on Mondays.
okay, not Mondays. Thursdays are most available. There's also the option to do the Tuesday that council's not meeting, so the second Tuesday of the month.
But I would do 3 meetings in a row.
This is Jeannie, and I'm completely open. You guys can work around your commitments, Michelle and Janet, and your leaving.
Well, how about the second Tuesday then that the council's not using? Then we'd at least be cohesive.
Well, I think, so that's a good suggestion. Council seems to use Tuesdays for special meetings, which it seems to be holding frequently and more frequently from a periodic perspective. Just something to throw out there. Yeah, and appreciate I'm leaving you all. I guess, is there a problem with the first Wednesdays other than the first Tuesday is a meeting that the clerk attends also for the
I was thinking the first Wednesday would be good. And then the third Wednesday, if you guys had something that needed to be discussed ASAP and not have to wait till the following month. You know, have that as a backup date.
Or for a workshop. I
Or
think
for a
that,
workshop or a Thursday that you guys have available. That way, you know, if you need to postpone it for a future date, you have that backup date. That, you know, okay, we didn't finish on the first meeting. We have this reserved for as a backup that we can continue. Like, let's say, for example, given today, if we wouldn't have had a quorum, would had to have extended to a for sure date. You guys have that backup date. Okay, our backup date is always the third Wednesday, so no ands, if or buts about it.
as long as it wasn't used every month and it wasn't like an expectation that
Yeah.
you could, because of no, I'm thinking about noticing.
Yeah, I know.
So we can't conclude a meeting. You have to have 2 weeks for noticing, is what I'm trying to say.
But you can have the first Wednesday dedicated to BC planning. That's always a date certain for a monthly meeting, to
Mhm.
maybe even increase attendance by the public for their feedback and input, the great job that's already done
And you
for
can use-
noticing for participation.
And you can use the fourth Thursday as a backup. Because of the noticing, 2 weeks.
Is that too close again, though, to the first meeting if you're trying to do things in between?
If there's no, then it
could
would
break in
go to the
between.
next, to the next meeting. And, but then we have to meet deadlines as well for certain stuff.
Well, and the planning commission can always call a special meeting too.
Yeah, but with noticing, like you mentioned, it'd be kind of hard to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd really like to have it a consistent day. If at
Well,
all
it
possible.
sounds like first Wednesday.
What we're trying to do, Michelle, is the first Wednesday will be the committed day, but have a committed second day in case something needs to go to council, to commission, or we have to postpone something. We have a second committed day instead of having to wait for a full month.
Right.
So that's why my suggestion was the first Wednesday be our normal meeting days on schedule, and having the fourth Thursday as a second option in case something falls through or we have to cancel. Or like, for example, today, if we wouldn't have had a quorum and we had to postpone the public hearings, we had a set date already because that second day is set aside for us.
Right. The first Wednesday sounds good. And the third Thursday, you said?
Fourth
Does
Thursday.
The fourth, excuse me.
Does the fourth Thursday, does the proximity of the fourth Thursday to the next first Wednesday, which is only 5 business days, pose a conflict for any business you're trying to do in between those two?
I don't see why it would, because.
I do double packets already during 1 week. When we have the planning commission and city council, I gotta do 2 packets at the same time. Already.
So that fourth Thursday would only be if we needed it.
Yes. Not to be abused.
So
Had to throw that in there.
what I'm hearing is the meeting would be typically on the first Wednesday of the month,
Mm-hmm,
and then we'd have a backup fourth Thursday.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
If something happens or a special meeting needs to be called or
Workshop.
a workshop needs to be done.
And then-
Because something has to be, I guess, the way I see that second day is if something comes up and we have to take it to council, but the planning commission has to do it and we have to get it to council by the next meeting, you have that backup date to be like, oh shoot, now we gotta wait a whole month. And you guys got deadlines to meet and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And this would mean May 4th would be the next meeting. However, Emily and I were just conferring and we need to check with Nicole and with all the projects that are in, but I don't think there's anything. I don't
Well-
anticipate needing to bring anything to planning commission.
May 4th through the 6th, there'll be a training for labor relations.
Okay, so May meeting is pending. How about that?
As a point of clarification, there's a number of sections of code that need reviewed that AHBL is working on behalf of the city, correct?
Correct.
Can planning commission have a schedule of how you plan to outline those? I know that Nicole and I have had multiple discussions since January on what the sequencing is to get to a goal of traffic mitigation. It's 8 meetings away. What's your plan to address that? I mean, I think just having meetings when you have business maybe misses part of the point. But if it's useful for council to come back and give more direction towards that, that would be good feedback too.
So if there's not something, if we don't have projects, public hearings that need to come to you for a meeting, you would like to see the meeting used for.
Moving forward and making improvements to the rest of the code
Okay.
that's as outdated as Title 17.
I have no jurisdiction on that.
As a suggestion, and if it's a bad suggestion, then I'm happy for people to say it's a bad suggestion, but to provide more clarity for the other, and I'm sorry Nicole's not here, and I knew I don't have the list of them, but I think there was like 3 or 4 that kind of sequence each other that have cleanup items for improvement.
Zoning is next, I think.
Zoning is not ready yet. It'll be a while. Next is 1510, which is flood damage
Yeah.
prevention. And that's not ready yet. It still has to go back to ecology for another review. So we're working towards things. We don't know if we will have anything ready for you guys in May.
That's a good point of
4th. It's
clarification.
getting a little close.
That's a good point of clarification, that when you say getting ready for things doesn't mean you aren't working on all these other pieces, because I think you all have been doing an amazing job for the city of Benton City to bring things up to date. 100%.
What it
But I appreciate it
helps,
takes time.
But that's something, that's a comment, I mean, I'm writing your comment down because that's something to keep in mind, is that, you know, we're very mindful of your time, and so we try to not make the meetings terribly long, but we also want to bring you more than one item so that you're
Yeah.
not, you know, you're getting your money's worth, so to speak. But that's good to hear that, you know, maybe we do just bring one item, one piece of code or something, if it's ready, when it's ready.
Or maybe that's not appropriate, but then you know the next meeting you've got 3 things lined up.
we can certainly give updates every meeting on what we're working on, so you can anticipate what you'll see in the next few months. And if we ever have to cancel a meeting, we can include it in an email to you, the items we're working on. So you're aware that we're still working on items.
I like that idea because it would also, for us commissioners like me, none of the rest of them, that would look down the road, I may review the existing codes in anticipation of your guys' work to kind of actively participate, if you will. I would like that myself, but not sure how the rest of the commissioners feel about that. And
I think that's probably a good idea. I do need to nail down some dates though, because I travel with my job. So if they can get back with us on a set plan, that'd be helpful for all of us.
Okay, so it sounds like for now, Michelle, we've settled on the first Wednesday of the month,
Awesome.
and then sort of have a save the date for your months for the 4th Thursday of the month in case something special comes up.
Perfect.
Does that mean the May meeting will be the 4th Thursday of May if it's needed, since the first Wednesday of the month isn't an option?
No, the first meeting will be May 4th.
You just won't be here.
I just won't be here. And I don't know who will cover for me. They'll be in Yakima.
That's my birthday. I might not be here.
I'll be in training out of town, actually.
But maybe there's no business to discuss. That's the
Right.
other point,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because
then
I'm
if
scrolling through the list of projects in my head, and I don't think the list of projects, which also includes the code updates, and I don't think that anything's going to be ready because it's just not that, it's not at that point in the process for each of the projects.
And if May 4th isn't done, then our next meeting will be in June.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Janet. Sarah, where are you going? You keep saying you're leaving.
Yeah, so it's breaking news. Thanks, Janet, for that.
I was gonna wait till the end to announce.
submitted so there was a vacancy that came up on Benton City's city council. And there was 4 applicants. There's 5 applicants that applied and 5 applicants that interviewed last night. And to the wonderment of our great city council, they unanimously nominated me to replace and fill that vacant position. So now there's going to be a vacant position coming up on planning commission.
Well, congratulations. Woohoo.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
The other question I had was, you mentioned something about flood. Was it preparedness or what was that again? Something having to do with flood?
Flood damage prevention. It's chapter 1510 of the code.
Okay, because
Oh, no. Shoot.
what?
I think you're gonna lose me. My battery's going. Okay, I'm plugged in. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that caught my ear because I spent quite a bit of time professionally doing flood claims for FEMA and for using the flood policy and dealing with all the different flood zones and so forth. So if anybody needs any of that expertise, I'm available for that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? With that, I'll close the meeting.
So just an FYI, sorry, do you need
No,
me to cut
no,
you off?
help me all you can.
No. Before you adjourn, there will be a city council vacancy position available. I will be getting everything ready to be posted on Monday.
Planning
Commission.
commission.
Planning Commission,
Planning
sorry,
Commission.
I'm,
Oh,
She's tired.
okay, that's
I
okay.
tired.
We're with you.
And the process for planning commission is submitting an application and a letter of interest.
the same thing as the last time.
And then it's by appointment by Mayor Lehman
City council
and approval
and approval by,
Right.
yeah,
by
Mayor.
city council.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different process.
Oh,
than the
yeah.
Process that went through last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're ready for adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn from somebody?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Get well.
I'm gonna try. Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation.